'cause that's love. All night, TV, deeply peace feeling. That's love, yeah, 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 yeah. That's love, yeah, 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 yeah. Like the fall that brings me to. I like the fall that brings me to. Like the cord around sinew. I make a cord around sinew. Stuck the weight and east is less. The craving of the metal west. Hell tomorrow's rain and test. Hell tomorrow's rain and test. Love an empty sun and guess. Love an empty sun and guess. Dimples dangerous and blessed. Heaving and arriving, tinkling, mingling jet and statuette. Seething wet we meeting fleck. Seething wet we meeting fleck. Lines and winds and fib and half. Each fair day I give you half. Each fair day I give you half.
The artist is surrounded by a collection of objects. He rarely leaves their presence. His practice is one of care, of curation, of vulnerability. He values chance encounters. He clears his desk of empty Diet Coke cans.
Collecting is important to you because it is the very subjectness of the object which entices you. You see the object as an emitting force. You are not concerned with the authenticity of the meanings you assign to your objects, but the potential for their generation. The blank slate of the newly made object terrifies you.
A cluster of nettles grows somewhere in rural Poland.
When you were 6, on a fishing trip, you fell into a nettle bed. You avoided that spot for over a decade, the memory of the burning sensation still potent, still unpleasant. You make a work about this experience, where the viewer must kneel close to the ground to read the text. You text your grandmother the week before she visits, asking her to bring you nettles from that spot to use in the work. You send her the coordinates. J. Prosser writes of making home within the trans body, but you prefer to make home outside of it, around it. You know you cannot make your body absent, but you can absent it through accumulation. Some objects are found, some gifted, some stolen. What does it mean to own something? Where are the edges of a box? Where are the edges of your work?
My tutor once told me about an artist who put the label inside of a tin of crab meat, so, by this logic, if the label demarcates the outside, then in this work the whole world becomes the inside of the tin, and so the inside of the tin becomes its outside. They lost this piece for 10 years, then found it again. Now I've lost it, too. I send them an email. I need to know if the tin still exists. I can't stop thinking about it. I need to know if I am living inside a tin of crab meat.
When the art school goes digital, the artist's rented bedroom becomes his studio. His already esoteric practice becomes even more difficult to pin down. He exploits the contents of a skip down the road, puts them in the corner and thinks about them. The evening before a tutorial, he tries to validate his process. The result is a manifesto.
The inside of your work is the outside. The inside of the box is its outside. You are inside a tin of crab meat, and the lid is sealed. It's second year and you're thinking about salt. It's Christmas and you're couch surfing. You're using place as a metaphor to evade what you're going through, seeking stability through things outside of yourself, things that bring you solace because they resist change. Why is rock salt important? You experience vocal dysphoria daily and wonder how it might feel to inhabit a different voice.
A performance is enacted and reenacted a number of times. Each iteration takes a different form, but three components remain constant: an audio recording, a small light, and a pile of salt. The artist's favourite takes place at a dinner table.
You're trying to make a sculpture, a sort of salt pillar. It disintegrates each time you touch it.
My grandmother, a devout Catholic, tells me not to mess with the occult. Every Wednesday morning, she gets her fortunes told. Vilichka is a mine near Krakow, in a small town, population 19,128, where the locals have mined for salt 1,000 years. Legends surround this place. We can only view 4% of it. Salt is believed to cleanse, purify, preserve. At a Wiccan altar are 2 bowls, one filled with water, one with salt, white gold, Catholic, ceremonial. Let it run over me, cleansing my body like a baptism. Tiny grains in the cracks of my skin. The frustration, growing, of salt pillars. My voice, round and round, reverberates. I'm asking, how do you make this pillar stand? I want to watch it disintegrate, see it fall, fragile, catching the light. Lot's wife looking back at Sodom. I tried not to mess with the occult, but I can't help that it's this much fun. Salt comes from mines, the sea, sweat, tears, a little pot on the countertop. The preparation of food, intimate, is a ritual. I cook for you to show I love you. I add a tablespoon of salt to the pasta water, chuck a pinch into the red wine sauce, and stir it through. The salt mine in Vilichka extends via passages and chambers for over 178 miles. It varies in shades of grey, like unpolished granite. You can spend weeks in the sanatorium, barely coming up to the Earth's surface. My grandmother comes back, tells me about the future, puts her new picture of Mary on the wall.
Last night I dreamt about Tristram Adams. In his article Accelerations and Speed Limits, he looks at how exposure to capitalist environments accelerates speech. He says speech is brutal. It is the antithesis of biological pleasure, a form of torture and discomfort. Speaking is the body being put to use, subjected and contorted, respiration kowtowing to syntax, to language. Our lips, mouth, palate, tongue and teeth specialize in nourishing activities. The larynx guards the trachea, protecting us from choking. Nasal cavities, the lungs and the diaphragm let us breathe. But the voice like a parasite, disturbs these processes. There is no singular voice box, only the coming together of various organs sacrificing their primary functions. The voice box was my dream's antagonist. And my voice is not my voice. It is merely a vehicle getting me somewhere. For now, while my body goes through constant changes. So maybe one day, it will feel like my own.
He thinks about writing as a site of performance, a site of happening, spell-like and propelling into existence. Everything is curated.
Your mother never let you touch her bookshelf because you'd move the books out of line, but the insides of her drawers were full of empty cigarette packs and crushed Diet Coke cans. A year later, you're still thinking about Vielichka. The pandemic continues and you cannot recreate the performance that once put your text at centre stage. Installation becomes a performance of the site you can't access. The instructions you give are precise, mathematical. The drawings travel 52 miles in a box where they lay dormant. They are to be suspended on veneer pins 1.5 centimeters away from the wall, just far enough to be actuated by airflow. You hope they will be placed by the door where the draft will set them into motion even in an empty room. The installation becomes a zoo for the wind. What does it mean for a room to be empty? The work is installed incorrectly. It becomes stuck between two states. Not entirely inactive, but not activated. The site of kinetic potential is suppressed. It remains still, constant, as if asleep. In some small way, it feels violent. It reminds you of the simple objecthood of your drawings, which are private, shrouded in their own mythologies. Your drawings are kept in a drawer you found in the street. The drawer leaves your studio. The drawings must leave the drawer. You relinquish control and leave no instructions, requesting only that the installation is recorded.
The language of signs and symbols present in the work has been constructed over a number of years. It dates back to the artist's hometown, to solitude and wild swimming and walks in fields.
You think about an old tin train set you once had. You put a lot of care into it, sanding and painting, dusting it weekly with a tiny brush. You imagine it still in your mother's attic, where you haven't been for years. This train, like a fetish object, a stand-in for your desire of boyhood. Train tracks as a method of reorganization, disrupting the soft flesh of the landscape as if by surgery.
Train is slowing, slowly coming up to station. Metal fence and beyond that chimney. Monstrous, monumental, ceramics project, science experiment, maybe lava shooting volcano. Fun for the family. I came here once on a school trip. This is the best we have to offer our kids. One of the richest men in the world owns this, my teacher said. It was something to be proud of. And besides that, well, just add baking soda, you'll see results within seconds. A big whisk pop bam! Hope the cement doesn't do that. It wouldn't be good for the economy. Science fair like, but so boring. Imagine devoting your whole life to cement. Well, I'm at art school. Maybe it's not that different. Huge gaping mouth. My mother blowing out smoke in the kitchen corner of our 2-room trailer. See the chimney obscured. Train pulling into station. Rain spitting says, "Welcome home."
The summer after second year, you go swimming every day. Eagerly, you learn the histories of the places in which you swim.
The piece is preceded by instructions to be performed in 3 voices. It relies on the potential for its performance, but is presented in the form of writing.
Once I met a man who told me he was Elvis, and all I could think of was that Kirsty MacColl song, you know, the guy at the chip shop thinks he's Elvis. His name was Tony, and he added me on Facebook. He was a collector, he told me. He collected lots of things, and he dreamed of going on The Voice. One day I saw him playing his theremin in town, but I ignored him, and a few weeks later I moved away. He stopped sending me photos of his Elvis memorabilia and the things he dug up in fields. "Isn't it mad how everything came from the ground?" he'd said. One evening I found a strange rock he'd given me, and I searched for his Facebook on my way to a night shift. I saw he'd passed away the week before. A hagstone, I now know it was called. I buried it outside my window when I got back in the breaking morning light, humming along to a theremin version of Can't Help Falling in Love I'd found on YouTube.